I'm going to show you how I grow my groceries with only spending $65 a year on fertilizers. I grow it naturally, organically, and effortlessly. But the proof is always in the pudding. So I'm going to show you a little bit around my garden. 90% of the Shimel Bean veg patch is produced and made from recycled materials, including our soil. Now, of course, we had the soils tested before they were used for food growing, and we had no issues, fortunately. But the soil itself was impoverished, and so it's taken a bit of time to bring it up into a point where it's happy and thriving. And the secret behind that is this. 'Fertility management in the garden really is so simple when you break it down and make it easier for yourself. My box bath. Now this is where I soak any cardboard or any safe paper products that come through. It's just soaking in some water. Then on this board I have 2 grit saucers, ground up eggshells and some sand. Now this is really important for healthy and happy worms because they don't have teeth, so they need a little bit of grit to be able to process what they're eating. And in here is the wormy temple. These lids are designed specifically for this purpose. We designed them so that they have covered with villa board and then a timber frame. But then inside of here is insulation. And this is keeping our worms super cool in our warm climate. The other great thing with this system is that it's sealed. No mice, no vermin, no nothing can get in unless the lid is open. The struts make this rather heavy lid so easy to pop up and down. Come and meet the wormy temple. Compost worms like to sit up in the top layer of the soil, and this is why it's really important to keep them well insulated. This is a cast iron bath sat in a frame, and then because I like things to look quite neat, we've just boxed it in and painted it up. I use the cardboard to keep the moisture. When I feed the worms, I just add a little pinch of sand and a little pinch of the eggshell powder. I'm going to continue to feed them here and get them really happy in this space. Then I'm going to transfer them in a month or two, and I'll start moving their food down, and it'll move into this area and finally right down the end here. And that's going to move that population of worms down the wormy temple. So I will have herded all of the worms down to the end of the wormy temple, and their castings will be left. I'll leave the lid up for an hour or two. That light, it'll encourage the worms to move down deeper into the mix, and then I'll be left with a worm-free, beautiful space of worm castings. And that is the magic we're looking for. But this is a fresh setup, so it's going to take some time before that happens. But there's another product that comes from this system, and that's the wormy tea. Any excess moisture that goes in is going to come out here. And that happens through this pipe, which is plumbed into the bottom of the bath. In the back of this box, I've popped a hole in, and it just slides on to catch all that beautiful wormy tea. And here are two other systems that I use to manage fertility naturally in the Shimewell Bean Veg Patch. And here we have the weedy brew, and this one we have our poo tea. Now the weedy brew is simply weeds that are harvested from the garden, tossed into a barrel of water and left to soak. Once they've soaked and broken down, we take their beautiful nutrients in liquid form. The great thing with this system is that the barrels have been put up high, so I can easily get my watering can in underneath. I like to use a blend when I'm fertilizing the garden. If I've got a really heavy feeder who needs a little extra love, they'll get a dose of this, which is called the Goddess's Brew. And this will be the blend of weedy brew plus a little poo tea and some of the worm tea. This will have your plants jumping out of the ground in no time. Add a little bit of this Goddess's Brew to some of my younger seedlings. But there's another secret to how I distribute this beautiful liquid, and it's in here. Deep down in here, where my seedlings are, I'm using olas right next to the seedling, and they're popped in at the same time. I take my Goddess Brew and I pour it into my olas. The plant's roots will draw that moisture from the soil, which then draws all of that Goddess Brew from the ola through the ola wall, and then it's available for whenever the seedling needs. And in our warm climate, this has been a game changer. You can fill it with just water, which is what I do sometimes, but every 2 or 3 weeks I'll give my seedlings a good dose. These are some beautiful mini eggplants, Lebanese eggplants, and I grew these last year and they were divine. Highly recommend them, and very little fuss. Now what I wouldn't use my Goddess Brew for is for the leafy vegetables that I'm going to be eating. Plants like tomatoes, eggplants, even zucchinis. But you don't really want to pour this over the top of anything that you're going to be eating, such as your lettuces. I try to keep it in contact with the soil rather than the foliage, and as you can see, using the olas is another great way. The whole fertility hub consists of the box bath, the grip manager, the wormy temple, the wormy temple tea, weed brew and poo tea, along with the 3-bay composter. but it just consists of some fundamentals that you could apply in your own garden. For example, the box bath is just a box that holds the water and any cardboard material, so I'm just pre-soaking that. The wormy temple is just an old cast iron bath, but you could use any kind of bath that you can get your hands on and leave it on the ground. Pop your worms in and off you go. Cover it preferably in the shade if you're in a warm climate. To access the wormy tea, you could prop it up on some bricks and then pop your plumbing in so that it can drain out. And if you want worm tea and you don't want to plumb up a bath or a vessel that you've got your worms in, then all you need to do is take a handful of those beautiful wormy castings, pop it into your watering can, fill it up and go and share the goodness. The weedy brew and the poo tea are just cheap barrels, $20, and I painted them up and added some features to them and popped in the taps as well. But you could easily just use the barrels alone and scoop the material out with a ladle or a bucket out of the top. And the weed brew uses up your waste weeds. But the incredible thing about weeds is that they are so good at finding and drawing up nutrients. And this is why your weed brew is so potent. It's full of trace minerals that general plants just can't access. Having your weed brew in a liquid form makes it hyper available to your plant. To make your own poo tea, it's so easy. All you need is a watering can, some poop and some water. Mix it up, let it soak, and then extract that goodness by using 1 part poo tea to 3 to 4 parts of water. You dilute it down, add it to the soil around the root zone of your plants, and they will love you for it. But maybe a big worm farm isn't for you. Perhaps a big worm farm like what we have at the Wormy Temple isn't a fit for your space or for your needs in your garden. And that's where the worm kitchens come in. These are incredible. Worm kitchens will take all of the benefits from having a worm farm, but it reduces the workload because the worm kitchens are actually in the ground. And you can see one here. They're dug into the ground so they stay nice and warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And they're right there, so as you go around your garden and clean up and pick off any waste that you might have, they can go straight into your worm kitchen. But the real advantage to a worm kitchen is that the worms that are in this kitchen move in and out freely, and they distribute their castings directly into the soil. So I never have to do the work. They're doing the work for me. Another lazy gardener approach. Worm kitchens aren't really suitable for large volumes of material or woody material. So that's where the 3-bay composter and the Wormy Temple comes into play. And when it comes to making compost, in the past I've really struggled. I struggled to get my compost to become composty without an enormous amount of effort, but I've since found a solution. And my solution is to shred the material or to chip it all up. And I use a wood chipper for that, and it breaks all the material down, increases the surface area, and speeds up the rate of decay. It is honestly the lazy way to create good compost. I can get compost from chipped material in around 3 to 4 months. There's no turning, no mixing, no aerating needed. All I do is just leave it. The compost system is great for large fibrous waste, things that are going to take a lot longer to break down, things that the hens or the compost crew perhaps wouldn't be interested in eating. And another thing that I do use in my compost is biochar. Biochar is hardwood that has been burnt down into an ash form. and I just put that ash directly into the compost. And my fertilising costs per year are under $65. That's to service this whole garden and grow 80% of my very own produce right here in my backyard. This here is the secret to the Shine Wellbeing Veg Patch and how I can grow so effortlessly. But don't be fooled, this is not just any old mulch. This is the Shine Wellbeing Magic Mulch, and it is developed by the compost crew. Making your own magic mulch is so easy. A couple of guinea pigs, or compost crew as I like to call them. You take their manure. Now this is fresh from their bed, and this has the sugarcane mulch bedding, which gives us our good carbon element. We've got our nitrogen element through the hair. We've also got the urine and these beautiful little pellets. Now these pellets are what make this so great. Take my sugarcane mulch, I'll pop it into a wheelbarrow. I'll then add in a little bit of my rock dust, and then I'll add in the compost crew's manure, and that creates a slow release mulching system. So twice a year I add my magic mulch, and if it gets a little thin or run down, then I'll add some more as well. It's time saving because I don't have to go back and not only mulch my garden but fertilise it as well. This makes it super easy and great for a lazy gardener like me. I know that every single veg temple is being fertilised every single time the rain comes. Magic mulch is simply a blend of a carbon with some animal manure. Now I prefer to use the compost crew manure because it's pelletized. I know it washes through gently over time, and it's a cold manure, so I don't need to worry. I can use it fresh from the compost crew's cage and directly make my magic mulch. But if you don't have access to compost crews or guinea pigs, then you can simply use any other type of manure that you can access easily. Goat manure, sheep manure, cow, horse, all of these are great manures. Chicken manure as well, and if I'm running low on the compost crew, I'll change it up with some well-rotted chicken manure. It's fine to change it up sometimes. But there is one thing that the magic mulch doesn't have, and that is synthetic fertilizers and anything that's not a natural product. It is 100% organic, it is 100% natural, and it fertilizes my garden effortlessly while I have my feet up. Fantastic. If I want to add a little bit more, I'm going to use the weedy brew, the poo tea, and the worm tea to make the goddess brew.